Spoiler alert from Mushoku Tensei Volume 7. If you haven't read it, then I suggest you do so before continuing on to this video. After Dead End broke up, Rudeus goes to the north to look for his mother. But when he gets there, more adventures are waiting for him. Hello everybody, this is the Anime Bro here, and welcome to another video. And today, I'll be reviewing Mushoku Tensei Volume 7. Now before this video starts, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this, and come back next time as I talk about Volume 8. And now, let's get into the video. Now the first thing that I want to talk about is the story. Now Volume 7 is a very sad volume. Unlike other volumes where it is very happy and you get to see a lot of great moments and just a couple of struggles, this one really is sad throughout the whole volume. Yeah, sure, you get some happy moments in there, but from beginning to end, it's mostly sad. It's sort of like a roller coaster. It starts off sad, then gets very happy, and then it just crashes down into sadness all over again. And honestly, I like it. It's by far one of the best volumes so far in the Mushoku Tensei series, and I did like reading this entire volume. Now normally I'm not a person that really likes sad stories. I do like tragic moments when there's meaning behind it, but most of the time I really do like happy and upbringing stories. But I think the real accomplishment of Volume 7 is that it made me feel sad about Rudeus. Rudeus was a character I thought I would hate throughout the whole series, no matter what, because he was just a person that I couldn't relate to. He was a pervert. He also worshipped a pair of underwear. You know, these were things I thought, yeah, this is not someone I wanted to be. But in Volume 7, he was a totally different person. He was a person that you felt sad for, that you wanted to actually root for. He was going through so much at the end of Volume 6 that you want him to feel better. And it was something that I'm actually surprised about that this volume was able to do. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really do hope that life gets better after this volume. Because honestly, at the very end of this volume, it still was a sad ending. He didn't get happy at the end. In fact, he probably got more depressed. It's something that was really amazing to me, and honestly, I can see why people like it. It's a really good volume, and probably the best one so far. Now the next thing I want to talk about is characters. Now, I got 3 characters that I want to talk about. One of them not being so important, and the other 2 I think really were one of the biggest focuses in Volume 7. And the first one I want to talk about is Susan. I think that's how you pronounce her name, so I'm just going to go with Susan. So Susan is a sub-leader of Counter Arrow. She's a sub-leader with another person named Timothy, but we won't be talking about him. We'll just be talking about her. Now, she is a warrior that uses a sword, mostly like the tank of the group. So if you played MMORPGs, she's the person there trying to get aggro and making sure everyone is doing their attacks without getting interrupted by other monsters. And the biggest thing that really is important about her is that she acts like a bigger sister to Sarah, the other person I'm going to talk about. And you actually do get to see this throughout the volume, especially during one time when Counter Arrow actually goes out and does a mission. Something happened where Sarah got separated from the group and got lost. Now, Susan wanted to actually go look for her straight away. She really cares about her, she saw her as a sister, and she didn't want to leave her out there all alone for her to die. And it's a really good trait that she has. Now, the next character I want to talk about is Sarah. Now, Sarah is a ranged support character with bows and arrows. In fact, the group has once said that she is a prodigy with those arrows. Unlike the other people who are about maybe 20 or 21-ish years old, she's by far the youngest. So she is a bit arrogant and thinks she's better than some people and whatnot. And in the beginning of the volume, she really doesn't like Rudeus. Now, at first, you assume she doesn't like Rudeus because she's a girl and she just hates boys. But eventually, when you get to know her past, you get to understand that she doesn't hate Rudeus for himself, she hates him because of his name. So, if you have been reading this volume, you know that the Grey Rat family is a very powerful family, and that there's actually different branches in the family. Now, Sarah, when she was a little girl, had her village completely destroyed by monsters. And the one thing she hates more than anything is nobles, because the nobles didn't go out there to help her village. So, she hated Rudeus because she hates nobles. So it was a kind of understanding why she actually hated Rudeus. Now, the thing I really do like about her is that throughout the volume, she goes through this character growth somewhat. She starts off hating Rudeus, and then after a big event where Rudeus saves her, she begins to actually open up with him, become friends, And then eventually the feelings of being friends become feelings of being affectionate. She wants to be Rudeus's girlfriend. But then something happens where Rudeus has a problem. Everyone who's read it knows it. And she thought that Rudeus had no feelings for her. And this basically makes her kind of hate him now. But what's really sad mostly is that towards the end, when she really finds out what happened with Rudeus, she wants to apologize but realizes he left. And this is kind of actually where the volume ends, and this is why I say this volume ends very sadly. Is because Rudeus leaves without getting an apology from Sarah, and Sarah is just in her room, just feeling sad that a man she had great feelings for left, thinking that she really did hate him. And in truth, she just didn't know the circumstances. And as a character, she's really great. I do like the growth she goes through, and it's one of the highlights of Volume 7. And then finally, we got my favorite character, Soldat. Now, Soldat is the leader of Step Ladder. And when we first meet him, he seemed to be this arrogant prick that seems to just like fighting. And he really hates Rudeus to a point where every time they meet, he just bullies him. Rudeus could be just doing nothing but drinking, and he just completely goes nuts on Rudeus. But eventually, during the time when Sarah and Rudeus have their first date, at the very end of it, when Rudeus is very sad and whatnot, Soldat starts to become mean again, like he normally does. But instead of taking it, Rudeus actually just beats the crap out of him. And he is sad. He's saying why didn't she stay? Why did she leave me? And all that stuff. And this was when Soldat realized who Rudeus was. Well, he knew that Rudeus was actually crying. He just didn't like it that Rudeus was hiding his real self under a fake smile, which he always said was creepy. But eventually, over time, he starts talking with Rudeus, and they kind of actually become buddies. Not really friends, more like acquaintances, but they actually start hanging out, and Soldat becomes a genuine guy. He's not an arrogant prick who thinks he's the best at everything. He just didn't like Rudeus because he was not being his true self. And also, he has a great moment where when Rudeus actually tries to kill himself, he stops him and says, if you want help, you can join my group. Because it seemed like the reputation that Rudeus had with that group was over. They didn't want to work with him anymore. And I really do like that. Soldat was definitely the MVP of this volume. And in the far future, I really do like to meet him again, just to see what he's up to. Alright, now let's talk about location. Now, in this volume, we actually have two locations that are important. One of them being where most of the volume takes place, as in the safe area, the town, and whatnot. And the other one being a legit dungeon of some sorts. Now, the city that Rudeus stays in is called Rosenberg. Now, some people sometimes call it the gateway to the Northern Territories. I forgot the reason why, but it's just a nickname they came up with. Now, it's not really a village per se, it's actually one of the largest cities in an area called the Duchy of Bashirant. And throughout the volume, Rudeus goes out try to build his reputation because he's looking for his mother, the last Grey Rat family member he's actually looking for. And this is mostly where he gets the jobs and also gets to meet with Counter Arrow most of the time. And the interesting fact about the city is that most of its money comes from magical implants. Now what these are magical items that basically allow the user to do a specific thing. So to compare it to something that I know, it is like Sauron's ring from The Lord of the Rings. The item makes the user invisible, or the ones we do get to see use it, and that's basically what magical implant does. Now the thing about Rosenberg is that it is very cold out, and mostly because it snows a lot, and because of how much it snows, the sky is usually white, not really blue. And because of how cold it is, many people actually put on thick clothing to actually stay warm, which, that makes sense. And it snows so much, in fact, that a lot of jobs in the area are just to remove the snow on the ground. And they even have like this big tool that they use to melt the snow once it's gathered in one place. And also because of how cold it is, they plant trees on the side of the road, not because it looks nice, but because it's used for firewood. So there's always an easy access to keep yourself warm in this city. And that's really smart when I think about it. So yeah, that was it for Rosenberg. Now the last location I want to talk about is the Galagua Ruins. Now like I said before, this is the very first dungeon that we actually visit to, and it's surprising that we visit in volume 7 of all volumes. Now the Galagua Ruins is actually a great place that has a lot of world building in it. It was made during the Human and Demon War. I think the one with La Paz, I totally forgot about it, but it was made during a crucial point in the war. I think it was because there is a large statue of Kirasu in there, and it looks like an adult version of the one we saw in volume 4. Yeah, volume 4. So I guess her tastes actually never changed. But besides that world building, it is actually a 2-floor dungeon, with the first floor having tall and narrow hallways with a maze-like corridors. So a maze, and inside the maze is filled with skeletons and wrath. And then on the second floor is filled with snowdrake scales, because snowdrakes actually sometimes visit this location. And we also get to see that there are some tunnels that were made during the time period of this war so that they could do sneak attacks. Now that's not the real important thing. The real thing that was actually interesting about this was that snowdrakes used it to go underground inside of it, so it kind of made it very hard for people to actually clear this because of the snowdrakes. And it was in fact because of this dungeon that we get to learn about Soldat and all the things that he was able to do. And that was basically it. A really interesting thing to have a dungeon here, when really this volume is mostly about Rudeus in his worst state of mind. Alright, now let's talk about iconic moments. Now the first iconic moment that I want to talk about is Rudeus disbanding Dead End. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is that it really is a sad point. Rudeus has gone through a lot, and the fact of the matter is he's all alone now. He doesn't have any family members, he doesn't have any friends, he doesn't even have the girl he loves. He's all alone, and it really is important that this was the first scene in Volume 7, because it really does set the tone and the mood for this volume. He starts crying after he disbands it, and honestly, can't blame the guy. He's traveled with these people for so long, and now he has to say goodbye to them. Honestly, it was a really good thing to put this as one of the first things we see. Now the second moment that I want to talk about is Rudeus saving Counter Arrow. So during a mission with Counter Arrow, Rudeus and the gang actually get into a predicament that seems like they are going to die. They try their hardest to actually do something about it, but turns out it will be for naught. But then Rudeus actually tries his real hardest and obliterates all the foes around him. Now, I want to put this point here because it's one of the first moments where Rudeus starts getting a bit happy. It's because of this moment that the group starts realizing that he's a reliable guy. They start praising him more, and he starts actually hanging out with them more after this. And you get to see Rudeus actually becoming a bit happier and actually talking to people more. So it's a really important moment, I think. Next, we got Rudeus looks for Sarah. So after Counter Arrow does a mission, it went south really bad. Sarah is missing, and one of their members, Mirror, dies. So in this predicament, everything is really bad. Susan wants to look for Sarah really bad and doesn't care about the weather, but Timothy tells her that we have to look for her after the snow clears because we will be in the same predicament. And while they are arguing, Rudeus goes out and looks for Sarah. He finds Mirror's head and brings it back so that he could give a proper burial to him. And he also finds Sarah being trapped under a tree monster, where he eventually goes and saves her. And it's also because of this moment that Sarah actually starts becoming a bit more friendly to Rudeus. And Counter Arrow looks at this moment to where they really owe Rudeus a lot for not only finding Sarah, but also bringing back the body of one of their members so that they can give him a proper burial. And this is an important part, just like the other moment, because it's becoming a bit better for Rudeus. He started off by disbanding his group, and then he eventually comes a bit more friendly with Counter Arrow, and then eventually now he's kind of considered a member of Counter Arrow. They really care about him now. And then next we got Sarah and Rudeus' date. Now, over time, after Sarah gets rescued, she begins to have feelings for Rudeus. And one day she asks Rudeus on a date. They mostly go to a weapon shop to look for weapons and, chat a bit about things. And then after that, they go to a bar and then go to Rudeus' place. And it's kind of here when you learn about a big important part in Rudeus' development. Kinda. So it's here that we learn that Rudeus has ED. And because of this, Sarah doesn't think of it as he has a problem. She just thinks of it as he doesn't find her attractive. And the date ends basically very badly. And because of this, it kind of goes back to where their relationship becomes where it was in the beginning. Now, I put this moment here because it eventually shows that even though Rudeus was at his height of happiness, it went down very badly after the date. And this will eventually lead to my final moment, Soldat and Rudeus talking. Now, Rudeus and Soldat don't have a good relationship before this point. In fact, it's kind of say that they hate each other. Soldat makes fun of Rudeus and Rudeus just takes it. But unlike other times, Rudeus actually lashes out. He starts punching Soldat and eventually starts crying out like, why did she leave me? What is wrong with me? And all that. But instead of actually fighting back, Soldat realizes, okay, let me just chat with this guy. And Rudeus actually chats with Soldat a lot, and they talk about his past and whatnot. And honestly, this was a really good point, because it eventually shows that the friend he needed was Soldat. Soldat was just there listening and just becoming a good person, and you get to see what Soldat was truly like. He wasn't just some guy who was arrogant and thought he deserved the world. He was just a guy who wanted to know what everyone was, and knowing Rudeus, he kind of became his friend at the very end. And it was a good moment that I think Rudeus actually needed. He really didn't need a love of his life or a group that he can call his home. He honestly just needed a friend to actually have his back. Now, I don't have this as a moment, but I really want to talk about the ending. The ending of this volume really left me in a bad mood, but in a good way. Rudeus leaves with everything basically ending badly with Counter Arrow, and Sarah doesn't get the opportunity to actually apologize to Rudeus. In other ways, I think this would be like a bad ending, because again, I don't like sad things, but I gotta say, in this volume, it made sense to end like this. Everything started bad, got better, and then everything just was worse at the end. And it made sense to this volume. It was like poetry. It rhymed. And that's all I have to say about iconic moments. Volume 7 is definitely one of my favorites. Alright, now let's end this volume. Now honestly, I'm ranking this an A. This is by far a great volume. I can see why people actually like it. I was rooting for a guy I never thought I would ever want to root for. This man was someone I really hate and even called the worst protagonist ever. But in volume 7, I felt bad for him. I wanted him to grow, and it really did an amazing job. But not only that, but its tone of it being one of the worst in sense of like you felt bad, it was a definitely great tone. And I honestly think it really deserves to be one of the best volumes ever. I don't know what else to say. I've already talked a lot about this. I can find very little problem with volume 7. I just really love it. Rudeus going through this hard time and just trying his best only for it to end worse. It's just really amazing. He really was a character in this volume, unlike the other ones where he was just a pervert in a little boy's body. Now, in terms of if it goes against volume 1, it's really hard to say. I love volume 1 because it was a great introduction. We got so many different characters, we got so many different mindsets. It was really good. And volume 7 was just a really good volume just for Rudeus. Like, I didn't need the other mindsets. I didn't need the other extra stories. I was just fine with Rudeus. And honestly, that was a big shock to me. If you've actually gotten to volume 7, then honestly, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It is definitely one of the great volumes right now. Alright, and that is the end of this video. If you really enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this, and come back next time as I talk about Volume 8. And as always, I am the Anime Bro, and see you guys later. Peace!